Anybody else? Iron Skies? Great film, right? Iron Skies is a spoof comedy about German flying saucers on the bloody moon. I tried doing a David Icke impression, doesn't work. In essence, we didn't win the war, we lost it. The Nazis took over. The Americans got the rocket scientists, Britain got the mind-controlled medical people, okay? The stuff dropped on Japan was German. Who lost the empire? Britain. Who lost all contact with the oil? Britain. The British Empire collapsed. Our special relationship with the United States, okay? We lost the war and the Germans didn't.
They have impacted cultures throughout time, and I think, he didn't tell me, or they didn't tell me this, but I think it's possible that the Basque region of Portugal, or on the border there, I think the Basque could possibly be some sort of remnant of an integration of genetics. Because, and I don't know as much about this as maybe somebody out there does, but the Basque people have some sort of thing in their genetics that are different than the rest of the human race. So I don't know, that could be a correlation there.
Liverpool is a great audience. I had some great questions, and I think that
some long ones as well.
Yeah, we had some long ones, but that's okay. And I had to get a summary of what they were saying. But yeah, it was a great conference. I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of the better ones I've ever done.
But are you disappointed that there are no UFOs in the car parks?
Actually, I've seen a couple of UFOs over time, and yeah, it would have been nice. It would have been very thematic to see one here. Yeah.
But what you're talking about is kind of far beyond what many people would accept as reality. Basically, outside.
It's far beyond what I would expect as a reality if I didn't experience it.
So generally, this has been I don't want to put words in your mouth, but has it been a long, rocky road or something?
Well, I can't really complain because my life outside this story, my experience has been quite blessed, and I'm a happy person in life, and so I don't really give it a second thought. Yeah, I've had some people who kind of stay away from friendship because of it. But if people can't accept your entire thing, even if, let's say I was lying about the entire thing, if they can't accept my entire life, the lie and everything, and if I were lying, then what good of a friend are they? So it's not a big deal to me.
Well, you come across to me, if you don't mind me saying, as a very brave man.
Well, thank you.
I mean, have you been toughened up, or were you always this brave?
Yeah, I think my childhood has prepared me for that. Yeah, I had a pretty rocky childhood, so I went through the 12 years of regular school. I went to 27 schools, so we moved around a lot.
27? That's not many, is it?
No, not at all. If you're a gypsy, I guess, yeah. No, nobody's really come to me with a very similar experience. I mean, there's been a lot of people who have had contact in some form or another, or what they think is contact, perhaps. So I think it's... I haven't had a lot of that, no. And also because I've removed myself from this particular genre, this world, so to speak, for so many years that I really haven't had the opportunity to be, but I haven't had a lot of it now. I have a question for you. Do your arms get tired?
Yes, they do. You are very psychic. You're aware of that. Seriously, there's a couple of spooky things you said that have just been so spot on. Yeah, it's very heavy.
Well, it starts to tilt too.
It's like, but it's kind of an artistic angle.
There you go. There you go.
We Beckett in America. What's the situation at the moment with people's the population generally in terms of accepting an extraterrestrial presence?
I think it's gotten a lot more accepting.
But is that who's preparing us for that, or is that an awakening within people?
I think it's just time and the exposure of people reporting things and talking about things, and our America has grown so much in our media. I mean, we used 30 years ago we had 3 channels and that's it. Same with England. You had
got 3.
Yeah, well, okay, so you haven't evolved as much probably in that area, but
We've got about 500 channels.
Okay, well, 30 years ago...
PSTV, which is always channels.
Yeah. So I'm just talking news outlets, really, not just channels in general. But you have very few news outlets, and we had very few news outlets 30 years ago. But now we have so many, and the blogging and communications is just so pervasive now that I think that people are just exposed more to it, and so they become more accepting as they get exposed to it.
I started to receive information that looked to me as if it were abduction data. There were things like residual pain levels, and there were several different fields. And I started to think, because of the residual pain levels, I thought, are people being injured? Are people hurting from this? I started to get very concerned, and I got latitudes and longitudes, or what looked like latitudes and longitudes, and dates and times, and subject numbers. And so I started to get queasy about that. Now I know I was a product of that, and I know that it had probably been going on for a long time, but now I was a conduit for that, and I don't know why. I don't know why they were sending that through me, maybe to just test my ability to report that type of data, I don't know. But I started to ask questions from my control officer. I said, what is this stuff? Are people being hurt in these abductions? And I would always get the pat, just do your job. If you've ever been in the military is right down the road. You do your job. You don't ask questions. Unless you need to know, we're not going to tell you. And so that started the ball rolling. He told me I wasn't going to get out. Even when my enlistment came up, I wasn't going to be able to get out because I was in a career field that was necessary, with the Gray Project. So long story short, I went through my black chain of command, and I did what I needed to do. I told them, because they had no idea that I was in a Gray Project, obviously. And the Gray chain of command could not, I knew they couldn't manipulate this system, or the system, enough to stop me from getting out if I did this particular thing. And of course, that particular thing has changed in the US military recently. But that's how I got out.
Another interesting point, of course, is that we all think that sound is a wave. And interestingly, when you look into the ET thing, a lot of people get taught this language on board saucers, which we'll come to a bit later. Talk about bubbles. There's lots of things to do with these three-dimensional bubbles that contain these symbolic or linguistic forms, symbols. And this guy basically has discovered he's done a lot of research into sound and healing. I'll just play his bit, but he basically tells us that sound is actually like this. It's a bubble formation. We're told it's a wave, but it's not. It's a bit more complex than that, but there's not time to show you that. So essentially, that's the sound. Instead of being a wave, he goes into this at length, then we have this formation. And I just thought it was an interesting illustration, given we've got the intricate nature of that sound bubble. Sounds, resonance, buzzing, feelings in his body. This is a whole body sort of thing. This isn't just a mental sort of situation. And interesting, I think when people talk about telepathy, we usually think it's a discussion that if telepathy is about, then we started to hear what someone else is thinking. But a lot, if you go in to look at the language, people that have developed a whole theory of language, sort of to do with how language works underneath, people like Wittgenstein and stuff, then it seems actually that when we actually understand someone, this is why we say words like, oh, I see what you mean.
Right, there's a film called The Manchurian Candidate featuring Frank Sinatra. It's around about the 1960s, maybe the late 1950s. It's about how an assassin is programmed, perfectly nice guy, English, of course, all the bad guys in English in films, and they are there to execute a programmed set of commands to assassinate and terminate. That's what happened with the death on the tube. That's why when the guy Menendez was shot on the tube, they had to blow his brains out. That was a dead giveaway that he was a Manchurian, but they got the wrong guy. That was a dead giveaway that the police knew that they had programmed Manchurian candidate assassins running around the tube to blow things up. With a Manchurian candidate, the brainstem is permanently active. Even when most people are shot, a Manchurian candidate will sustain and maintain fire on the target. The only way to sever that is to shoot the bloody brains out. That's why the police stood over and blew the bloody brains out in public, was they knew that that guy had to be shut down. The only way you can shut a Manchurian candidate down is total destruction of the brain. 7 shots in the head. Right? That means the whole 7-7 thing is an inside job run by mind-controlled people. Right? We are being completely screwed here, right? According to James Casbolt at MI6, who basically decoded it and were telling us this now, what this says is that the Bavarian Illuminati met reptilian genetic engineers, and this section deals with modification of the eye. Right? So this is a coded cipher sent to me by blah blah. The cipher was discovered in a collection in Germany in the 1970s and sent to an heir in America who owned the estate of a former member of the Bavarian Illuminati. This document was donated to the Grand Masonic Lodge of Pennsylvania and then given to the Scottish Rite Masons in America. The Masons know all about the ET situation and the manipulation of genetics. Not everybody walking around is human. Not everybody is derived from original human stock, and there's a lot of humans walking about who've got different bits in them which are different to us, so-called the not we. We've got to not think about aliens. Aliens are up there. Alien refers to a 3-dimensional universe. We are not in a 3-dimensional universe. We are in a multi-dimensional universe. Don't look up, look right here. So when people with telescopes communicating with the stars, we're dealing with a multi-dimensional universe, so astronomers use a 2-dimensional instrument to tell you about it. John Irwin is a soldier on national service, 1957-1959. He was recruited into a special elite British military force called the 16. This secret British military force worked completely secretly within the British military in 1957, fighting the Illuminati and the aliens and the New World Order. Who the hell knew about the New World Order in 1957? He did. He was trained while in a near-death experience. His first interview, I've left on YouTube, basically gets around the story, talks about how he was initially brought into it. His second interview, which I did recently, I think his base is 10 or 11, now states that the British military officer that brought him into this elite was not really the same as most humans. It doesn't mean he's alien. It doesn't mean he's some kind of somebody from a planet elsewhere. It just means he's different. He wrote this book called One Step Beyond. It's called One Step Beyond Death. In other words, he's trained in the higher non-physical world to be a killer. He is a very good killer. That's what he does. He completely throws out the SAS, martial arts, total distraction. The head of the SAS has come to him. The head of the SAS failed all the initial steps, and John threw him out in a very nice way. The crucial thing about this is that in 1959, his last mission was to go in all across the Middle East. That was his theater of operation. And he was bumping people off very effectively. In fact, he did such a good job bumping one guy off in Cairo that when the Egyptian Secret Service read his book, they says, "Hey, how the hell did you do it? Come over here, we'll do it," right?
I know, perhaps what I think is the second most interesting case to do with this tutoring, again, the name of Saucer School, when people are being tutored in this new language system. There's a whole family, the Andreasen family, mother and daughter, seem to be heavily involved in the whole issue to do with ET contact. Becky, their daughter, was actually sat at this strange console that had these dual alien keys for symbols. There's two-hour interviews that I did in 2007 with Jim Sparks. And so if you go to the Exopolitics UK website, just put that into Google and put Jim Sparks, you should come up with there's two actual web pages there. One's called A New 3D Language. This is a guy that has a sort of 90% recall. He won't do hypnosis. He doesn't read UFO literature, and yet his conscious recollection of his experiences on board these saucers. And actually, I want to make a point here. I've put there saucer boot camp instead of school, because actually this range of ETs on board these saucers that went on for sort of a decade of his life weren't particularly pleasant to him. you'll hear a bit in a minute about the process that went on. But actually, no, this poor guy at the start, he was sat at this console like Becky that we've seen previously, and actually, if he decided that he didn't want to play ball with them to learn these alphabets, through which he was tracing symbols in the air. It looks like he's got a screen, but when you clarify it with him, he was actually tracing, and the equipment inside would pick up on this. So this whole process of learning these symbols was going on, but the main point was these symbols were being traced in the air. But if he didn't play ball with the ET's desires, they would do things like they'd limit the oxygen in the saucer, or they had a way of changing pressure in wherever he was, whether it was saucer or some base, I don't know. They had a way of changing the air pressure, which caused him a huge amount of pain to the point where he almost, is virtually passing out. And then he agreed to go on, and they changed the pressure again. So there was, I think as much as some of these less benevolent, in some way, being seers, then there was an element of sort of carrot and stick, and he got a lot of stick at the start, and it was a fairly rough time. And he got into several fist fights with these were grey ETs.
There is a secret group running the world, directing affairs. I don't know the exact nature of that group, but I know that it is real. They are preventing our general and free access to things like energy technology. They are preventing our access to cheap, non-toxic health treatments for cancer and other illnesses. They are preventing our knowledge of extraterrestrial beings in some shape or form. That whole topic has obviously different facets to it, but there is a cover-up. I found that out for myself. Well, if this is so important, why hadn't I heard about it on the news? There's always that barrier to get past.